So in today's video, we're going to be going over graphing sine and cosine. So the first thing that we want to look at is the amplitude. So if we take a look at this equation, y equals -3 cosine x, the amplitude is this a value here, which is -3. So the amplitude is -3. The period, we can find the period by doing 2 pi over b, and the b value is the number in front of the x. So it would be 2 pi over 1, which is just 2 pi. Okay? So first thing we have to look at is we have negative cosine. So for negative cosine, we're actually going to look at the minimum value, which in this case is going to come from the amplitude since there is no midline, which is going to be -3. And the maximum, again, the midline is 0, there's no c value, I should say, is going to be 3. So because it's negative, cosine is going to start, negative cosine is going to start at the minimum value, which is going to be -3. It's then going to go up to the midline. And since the period is 2 pi, this is 2 pi, we're going to break that up into quarters. So we'll have 2 pi times 1/4, which is going to be pi over 2. We're then going to split it in half by multiplying it by 1/2, which is pi. And then we're going to break it up into 3/4, which is 3 pi over 2. So we have pi over 2, pi, 3 pi over 2, and 2 pi. So we're starting at -3 because cosine is negative. It's then going to go up to the midline at pi over 2, then up to the maximum at pi, back down to the midline at 3 pi over 2, and then at 2 pi, it's going to go back down to the minimum value. And that represents one single cycle. Okay? If we wanted to continue this on the other side, we're just going to do the opposite. So now we're going to go up to the midline. We're going to go up to the max, to the midline, and back down to the mid. So it should look something like this. Okay? All right. We know our graph is going to continue. Okay. Next, we're going to be graphing sine. So again, we're going to look for that amplitude. In this case, it is 1. So the amplitude is 1. Because there is no number in front of sine, it's an imaginary 1. Okay, we're then going to look at the period. So now we have a number out in the front. So a period is going to be 2 pi over 4. So our period is 1 pi, is going to be pi over 2. Okay, so now we know that our maximum is again going to come from our amplitude because there is no c value. So our maximum is 1. Our minimum is -1. Our midline is at 0. So our midline is at y equals 0. So let's see, now that we have a period of 2 pi, we have to figure out our x-axis. So it's going to be pi over going to be pi over 8. We're then going to divide, multiply it by 1/2, so it's going to be pi over 4. And then we're going to multiply it by 3 over 4. So that is going to be 3 pi over 8. So we have pi over 8, pi over 4, 3 pi over 8, and pi over 2. Our max is 1. Our minimum is -1. Sine always starts at the midline. Our midline here is y equals 0. Since it's positive, it's going to go up to the maximum, back to the midline, down to the minimum, back up to the midline. So this is one full cycle. And then if you want to continue it on the other side, we're now going to go down to the minimum, to the midline, to the maximum, to the midline. And your graph should look something like this. Okay? All right. Next, cosine. We're going to look at our amplitude. Our amplitude now is 2. Our period is going to be 2 pi over 1/4. So our period is going to be 2 pi, and we're going to do keep, change, flip. So I'll multiply that by 4. So our period is 8 pi. Okay, so now we're going to take a look for our maximum. So our maximum, again, is going to come from our amplitude. Our minimum is going to be -2 because our midline is still y is equal to 0. Okay. So we have to find our x-axis. So we have 8 pi times 1/4 is going to be 2 pi. 8 pi times 1/2 is going to be 4 pi. And then 8 pi times 3/4 is going to be 6 pi. So we have 2 pi, 4 pi, 6 pi, and 8 pi. All right, so we have cosine, and now that cosine is positive. It's going to start at our maximum, which is 2. And from our maximum, it's going to go down to our midline. It's going to go to our minimum, which is -2, back up to our midline, and back up to the max. So it should look something like this. Oh. Hopefully your graph looks a little better than mine. And then to continue it, we're going to go to our midline, our min, our midline, back up to the max. Okay. All right. So now let's take a look where there are some shifts in the graph and our midline as well. So we have some shifts in our midline. All right, so let's take a look here. So we have our amplitude, again, is going to be 2 coming from right here. Our period is going to be 2 pi over pi, which is 2. Oh, I guess we could talk about the shift. And our shift is going to be coming from right here. So our shift is going to be down 3. So this C value is telling us our midline is now y equals -3. Our maximum is a little different. we have to think that if our midline is -3, our maximum is 2 above -3, which is going to be -1. And our min is going to be 2 below -3, which is -5. All right, so we have our min at -1, our max at -5. All right, this graph is a little off. Okay. And then our midline is -3. Okay. So if our period is, our period is not this. Our period is 2 pi over pi, which is 2. All right. So because it's cosine, it's going to start at our maximum, which is -1. Before that, let's break this down. So our period is going to be, let's see. So our period is going to be 2. So again, we're going to do 2 times 1/4. So that is 1/2. 2 times 1/2, which is 1. 2 times 3/4 is going to be 3/2. So we have 1/2, 1, 3/2, and 2. So cosine starts at our maximum. It's going to go down to our midline. Then it's going to go to our minimum. Going to go to our midline, back up to our maximum. And then if we're following this, we're going to go down to the midline, to the minimum, to the midline, to the maximum. Should look something like this. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to rearrange this one. -3 sine 2x. So now we can clearly see that our amplitude is 3. Remember, it's the absolute value of A. Our period is 2 pi over 2, which is pi. And then okay. Let's see. Other things you want to highlight is our maximum. Oh, I forgot about the +1. So we know that we're shifting up 1 unit, which means since it's sine, our midline is going to be y equals 1. Our maximum is going to be 1, our midline starting at 1, plus our amplitude, which is 3. So it's going to be 4. Our minimum is going to be our midline, which is 1, minus 3, which is going to be -2. Okay? All right. Okay. So I guess this is going by 2's. Okay. So to get our x-axis, we have pi times 1/4. So that's pi over 4. pi times 1/2, which is pi over 2, pi times 3/4, which is 3 pi over 4. So we have pi over 4, pi over 2, 3 pi over 4, and pi. Sine starts at the midline. Well, let's see. So that's going to be at 1. So it's going to be here at the midline. Because it is negative, it's going to go to the minimum. Then we're going to go back up to our midline. And then we're going to go up to our maximum, back to our midline. If we're going the other way, we're going to go up to the maximum, back to the midline, to the minimum, back to the midline. Looks something like that. Okay. All right. And I think we're going to stop there. You were able to see how the graph shifts when we add a C value. Okay. It depends on the value out here. If it's negative, it's going to shift down. If it's positive, it's going to shift up. Cosine either starts at the maximum if it's positive, the minimum if it's negative, and sine is always going to start at the midline. So if there's a shift up or down, it's going to start at that midline. Okay, if you have any other questions, you can ask your teacher.